I want to talk to you very briefly about what has been going on back home while you've been here for 5 years. And ask you firstly for your views on the new wave music that you must have heard, because you were telling me before we started recording and chatting that there are a couple of stations in New York which have actually gone out on a limb and played some pretty fiery music, shall we say.
Oh yeah, I'm a champion of it now. I like it. You know, I mean, look, when they catch up to the Yoko Ono Plastic Ono band, okay? So that's the answer to that. And anybody who thinks, oh, well, dumb old Lennon just got stuck in the 60s to do Starting Over and Losing You, you think I don't know what she's doing? You think we went with Cold Turkey and Don't Worry Kyoko and Why and Open Your Box? You hear it all there. I'm aware of the B-52s and Madness. Don't do that. Do this. I think that is the most original thing, actually, because it's so peculiar.
Yeah.
You know, I think out of all that mob, that was one of the most original sounds. Very good drumming, very good bass and all that. Now, as I said, I was listening to classical music and not really following it. I saw Sid Vicious die and all that on video in New York because they were all coming over here to make it in the Big Apple, as they called it. So whoever came through, I could see him on this cable TV thing they have here. So I saw Blondie when she was unknown on the cable TV. I saw Vicious when he was living in the hotel being filmed and doing all that stuff, whenever that was, mid-70s.
How much of the Pistols music have you heard?
Only whatever they did a video of it. You know, there was a lot of videos of them down at Max's or wherever the hell they were hanging out and playing, and Johnny Rotten and all that stuff. And yeah, great. To me, initially on Impact, seeing all that, I thought, oh, that's how we used to behave at the Cavern before Brian told us to stop throwing up and sleeping on stage and swearing. I mean, like in Hamburg, I used to sleep on stage. We used to eat on stage. We used to swear on stage. We were absolutely au natural. But nowadays, they don't have to put a shine holder on it to get a record contract, even though they are having a hard time with it. But still, yeah, I think it's great. I absolutely do. And when I was in Bermuda, a guy that works for me, Fred Seaman, had turned me on to the B-52s, Lenny Lovitch, or whatever her name is.
Lenny Lovitch, yes.
Yeah, Madness, about 2 years ago, but then I wouldn't listen. I'd asked him to go out and make me some reggae records and put it on a cassette, and on the other side he put all that stuff, B-52s and all that, about 2 or 3 years ago, whenever they came out. And I wiped it out, didn't even bother listening to it. I wasn't interested in anything other than what I was doing. But in Bermuda, I said, Fred, what was all that stuff you give me? Go and get me it again. And he brought me Madness, B-52s, Pretenders. And I said, oh, this is great. He said, well, I played it. I gave it you 2 years ago. Why didn't you listen? I said, I didn't want to listen then. And now I want to hear what's going on. Yeah. So I dig it.
And you dig reggae too, because you were saying that there are some stations here that actually play dub reggae.
Oh, they play dub. In the last 10 years, the thing I missed most about England was reggae. And in the last 10 years, a lot of Caribbean people have come here from Haiti, from Jamaica, and all points down there, and they've created a whole community and a whole thing, and it's getting very hip, the reggae, different from England's reggae. There's more R&B in it over here. Down in Brooklyn, they're making it. And it's very interesting. They play the English reggae and the New York reggae and the island reggae. There's all different styles. And the dub reggae, even the DJs are on Echo. Well, man, you come to on the Echo. But listen to Paper Shoes, Yoko Ono, second album.
I mean, we've done it all, really, you know.
We've been there and back, honey.
And that's
I still
10
like
years ago,
to do
you know.
straight rock and roll. I still, Losing You is a straight blues. Forget about the lyrics. I could be singing My Mommy Done Gone. It's blues, straight. Starting Over is straight pop rock, 50s style.
What about the American music scene at the present moment? I found it a bit soft listening to the radio here, particularly the rock stations.
They've gone top 10. FM was really, they played albums, but the financial and all the things that get involved, things can never be always the same. So they're going through a change now because the WNEW and WPLJ, the big white rock stations here, and they have started introducing a lot of what you call new wave. But before they did it, a new wave station opened, which just plays nothing but the clickety, 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 click, you know, whatever they call it, all the time. And of course, New York being what it is, they know what's going on in London because people are going back and forth all the time. It was in the air all the time. It was being played in clubs. It was talked about like underground. You know, everything starts down there. And as soon as they make a hit record, whoever it is, everybody's going to say, this sold out, and somebody else will come with a blue nose and a green ass, you know, and that'll be the new thing. So it has to move up and diffuse and become part of the scene. I did a TV show in 1973 with a guy called Tom Snyder, and he said, what music do you like? I said, disco and reggae. I should have invested in reggae because I never thought the Americans would get on. The Beatles made an attempt at ska. The solo on I Call Your Name was ska. Deliberate and conscious. Right.
Yes.
That's nice.
Oobla Dee was semi. Okay? So you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Right? But I'm willing to learn anything. I dig it. I do enjoy it. I enjoy the best of it. I was in Bermuda in a disco. Okay, I finally went out one night to a disco. I haven't been to a disco since the ad-lib days in London. Ooh. Okay? And people were trying to get me to all these ones in New York. I just didn't want to know. They said, but it's different. I said, what, you mean more lights? What the hell do I need to
less lights.
sit there in the dark looking at all these weirdos? I've got enough in my head. But I finally went with Fred, this guy that works with me, when we were separate. Not separate for any real reason, just a holiday. And I went there, and upstairs they were playing the disco, and downstairs I walked in, they're playing Rock Lobster, and I sort of said to him, Jesus, get the axe out and call Mother. She's finally made it. She mightn't be her doing it, but they're doing her to a T. I mean, they studied her. Yeah. They admit it too. So I called her on the phone and said, you won't believe this. I said, there's a group called B-52s. I'd heard their name for years and years whenever they'd been around, but I never really listened. I said, there's somebody doing your act there. She won't listen to anything, she's absolutely self-contained. I sat her down and she said, listen to it. I said, they're ready for you this time, kid. She said, well, I'm not going to do the same old stuff again. I said, do what you want.
Because I did it 10 years ago.
Do what you want, but do it. So here we are, and we're doing it.
No, but you see, when Jack Douglas, he was assisting with all the albums that we made here. And he was very good. And when we decided to call him, I found out that in the 5 years that we were absent, that he became a very famous producer or whatever. All right, so we co-produced with him. And so when he came, he said, well, all these young people are following you, So that sounds sort of silly. Maybe he's just sort of...
BSing you.
Yeah, right. So, and he said, no, really, all these people are doing it. And I just still can't believe it. It's happening. I can see that. But this time, so Jack was saying, well, just show him. Old Wave can do that one. But I didn't intend to do it that way. That's why I understand what John just sort of did things that he wanted to do and what he would enjoy, in this album.
You see, we could have come back and tried to be freakier than the freaks.
We can
make
do
a
that.
Conscious effort.
Because we were freakier 10 years ago than these people.
We could have just come back and reissued the early stuff of Yoko's that never really got much airplay anyway. Maybe a couple of people heard in London, right? A couple of people over here. But we didn't want to. We wanted to do what we want to do, the same as we did then when we did whatever we were doing then.
And you're obviously two very satisfied people on the strength of it.
Yeah, we like doing it. That's the point, isn't it?
In other words,
I'm calling you.
One final question to you. What about your private life and your own sense of security these days? David Bowie, I think, has recently said, but the great thing about New York is that he can walk down the street and people, instead of rushing up and ripping his clothes off, will come out, or rather just walk past him and say, hi, David, how are you? And he can say, I'm very well. Is it the same for John and Yoko?
Yeah. That's what made me finally stay here. It wasn't a conscious decision. I just found that I was going to movies, going to restaurants, and the 5 years, you think, it was just baking bread and the baby. No, because I went to Hong Kong and walked around, and people could not appreciate what it was. When I left England, I still couldn't go on the street. It was still Carnaby Street and all that stuff was going on. We couldn't walk around the block, couldn't go to a restaurant, unless you wanted to go with the business of the star going to the restaurant garbage. I've been walking the streets for the last 7 years. When we first moved here, we actually lived in the village, in Greenwich Village, which is a sort of artsy-fartsy section of town, for those who don't know, where all the students and the would-bes live, and a few old poets and that. People that have lived there for years, still live there. But we got into this before, we didn't finish it. She told me, yes, you can walk on the street, She says, you will be able to walk here, but I would be walking around tense like that, waiting for somebody to say something or jump on me and like that. And it took me 2 years to unwind, I can go right out this door now and go in a restaurant. Do you want to know how great that is? Or go to the movies? I mean, people will come up and ask for autograph or say hi, but they won't bug you, They just say, oh, hey, how you doing? Like your record or whatever. That because we got a record out now, but before they'd shout, how you doing? How's the baby? Oh, great, thanks. How are you?
Talking about restaurants, I'm
I'm
getting
starving
hungry
too.
now.
What happened to the chicken
Yes.
soup?
John and Yoko, on behalf of us, thank you very, very much for
A
talking
pleasure.
to us.
A great pleasure to talk to you and the BBC and all the English and Scots and Welsh and Irish listening. And
Cheers.
hip, hip, toot, toot.